Mike, what's your favorite and most reliable rooting hormone? Help! That was the last question that I just read, and I thought I would just go into it a little bit and answer for you guys. So a couple years ago, I made a video about all the different rooting hormones that I have here and that I use, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'll put a link in the description below. It covers all the ins and outs about it and my thoughts on the different rooting hormones, including my thoughts on some natural rooting hormones. Sorry for the noise behind me. I think somebody on the back property over there is drilling a well, so we got to put up with a little bit of that, but on with the show. So when it comes to rooting hormone, I want to say first that it's not the most important thing that you need to consider when rooting cuttings. In fact, many different rooting hormones will work for many different plants and many different types of plants and propagation techniques. Rooting hormone is simply an aid to the rooting process. That's all it is. It does not make plants root. It does not force plants to root. The plant will root all on its own without rooting hormone. Now that's something to consider for those of you who are really struggling finding rooting hormone for your area. I know there have been people on here who have said, I can't find this for my area, or my local laws don't allow the rooting hormone to be shipped in because some countries might outlaw it or ban it because of the chemicals within it. I don't know. But in the United States, we can buy rooting hormone, and many people use it, and many commercial nurseries use it. Now, rooting hormone is a wonderful aid in the rooting process, and it will help to get a higher percentage of cuttings to root, in my experience. However, it doesn't make them root. So the cutting will actually root because it has what are called undifferentiated cells. And those cells reside in the cambium layer of the cutting. And when the cutting is forced into a situation where it can do nothing except for either grow roots or die, it turns those undifferentiated cells into roots so that can then absorb moisture and nutrients. Now the undifferentiated cells are just like stem cells in our own body. The plants have these in higher concentrations at the nodes of the cutting, and so, or of the plant. And so when you take a cutting, that's why I recommend taking it right below a node, because there's a higher concentration of undifferentiated cells that can then be turned into root cells and turned into roots. So the plant will do all of this all on its own without any help from the outside. Now, the rooting hormone comes in because it can just aid. It can give it that little extra boost to help the plant convert those cells quicker and more efficiently into root cells, because it's giving them the hormones that the plant already has in a higher concentration that will help steer those little cells in the right direction. And that's why we use the hormones, because in a nursery setting, you want a higher percentage to root. You don't want to take 1,000 cuttings and have 100 of them root. You want as high a percentage as possible to root and root successfully. Whereas if you were just in a home garden and you had a hydrangea that you really liked and your friends and family wanted a copy of it, you could take 10 cuttings and more than likely 5, 6, 7 of them, maybe even more, are going to root without the hormone. So if you are trying to get a really high percentage of them to root and you are looking for the right hormone, that's really the next question. What hormone do I use and which one is the most effective? Or at least that was the question I got on here. The truth is, many hormones will work, like I said before, for many different types of plants in many different applications. What's more important than the rooting hormone for rooting your plants is taking the cuttings at the right time of year and having them in the right environment for rooting. That is of far greater importance than any rooting hormone you will ever use, in my experience. You could take any type of plant, like petunia, that is very easy to root, and you could take it at the wrong time, you could root it in the wrong medium, and under the wrong conditions, and cause the thing to rot and die. And I've had many people come on here and tell me that they had their petunias rot and die and they can never get them to propagate and root, even though they're one of the most simple plants to root. It's regardless of the hormone. It's because they're taking them at the wrong time, or they've got them in the wrong medium, or they've got them under the wrong conditions, and something within what they're doing to propagate them is not working out right. It doesn't matter how much rooting hormone you put on them. So of far more importance is what you're doing with that cutting and when you're taking it. So to optimize your conditions, to optimize your rooting success, what I recommend you doing is finding the plant that you really love, that you really want to get good at propagating, and learn about that specific plant and learn about when are people taking those cuttings. When is the best time, the best type of wood, softwood, semi-hardwood, hardwood, what is the best type of wood to take those cuttings as? What is the best time of year? What is the best weather conditions, the outside climate, heat, rain, clouds, all of that. What are the best conditions to take that cutting under? What are the best conditions of wood? And then, do I need bottom heat or not? What type of medium is the best to root them in? How much airflow should it have, or should it have no airflow? Hardwood cuttings, I don't put in a sealed system. Softwood cuttings, I recommend putting a cover on it. So there's lots of different variables, and what I would recommend is that you find the plant that you really want to get good at. Just start with one, and then read all you can about it. Watch these videos that I put up on the channel, see if you can find one about your plant, and really dive into that one plant and perfect the time of year you're taking the cutting, the type of cutting you're taking, your propagation system. Get all that down to a science, and you'll find that you really don't need rooting hormone at all, as long as you're not shooting for 100% success rate. Now, to improve your success rate, then you can add a little bit of hormone and you'll see it go through the roof. Now, as far as hormones, I did that other video, and like I said, I'll put a link down below, but I've got several different hormones that I work with around here. Now, I will tell you, the very beginning, when I first started propagating plants, I didn't buy anything fancy or special. I simply would go down to my local garden center. Many local garden centers in areas all over the country, or probably all over the world, sell just little bottles of Root Tone is one of them. That's ROOTTONE, or maybe they combine the two T's together and make it one word. I don't know. But there's a lot of generic rooting hormones like that you can find in little bottles for $10 or $15 in the garden centers. That's where I started out. Next, I went to Dip and Grow. I really like Dip and Grow because you can change the concentration of the Dip and Grow based on whether you're doing softwood, semi-hardwood, or hardwood cuttings, and then you're not lugging around all these different types of rooting hormones. You can just pick that one and adjust the concentration. From there, I really started getting into rhododendrons, and so I went to Hormidin 3. Hormidin 3 is like perfectly formulated for rhododendrons and other semi-hardwood evergreen plants. And so I went to that one. I've had a lot of success with rhododendrons. I use it a lot around here in these videos only because I go through the stuff and I always end up with these little bottles with a tiny bit of hormone in the bottom, and then I end up getting a new bottle for, the next cycle. And I have that old bottle just sitting over here, and so I use it for little odds and ends. That's why I use it a lot around here. But there is another hormone that is a gel. It's almost like a gel called Clonex. And I use that for a lot of little quick, easy softwood cutting projects where I'm just doing 1, 2, or 3 little softwood cuttings, and I don't need a large amount of it. Just dip it in real quick and stick it, and you don't have to think twice about it. You can find that stuff on Amazon. I have links to all this down in the description of the video, but that's what I would focus on if I were you. There's no magic hormone. There's no magic formula. The magic is going to be found in learning the right techniques, time of year, and way to propagate that specific plant that you want to propagate. All of these plants I have here are propagated differently. The rhododendrons, they're all semi-hardwood. Semi-hardwood taken in the usually August time frame. Now, even within a specific plant, I know people within the rhododendron trade at the little specialty rhododendron nurseries who take their cuttings at different times. I know one lady who has a business, and she takes her cuttings more in like October, November of the rhododendrons. And she puts them with intermittent mist and bottom heat, and she has great success. I've done all kinds of ways, and I personally really like taking these cuttings as semi-hardwood in August, early August. Now, I've also met And that's in my system that I do. I've got a link to my website where I show you how to do all that. But I've also done intermittent mist with them and had great success with that. I also know, well, they've passed away, but years ago, knew an older couple who had a little rhododendron nursery, and they used to take their cuttings in June and early July with intermittent mist. And that's like borderline too early in my mind, but they had great success. So within specific types of plants, you're gonna have variation as well. And you know, people just kind of figure out what works for them and they just go after it and they get good at it and they do it over and over again. But the rooting hormone is negligible when it comes to how successful you are. Really, it's about using the right technique. That's just the rhododendrons. The roses, you know, people take them as hardwood cuttings. People take them as semi-hardwood cuttings. I prefer to take them in the summer as semi-hardwood cuttings, like late June, mid to late June, early July, depending on the condition of the wood and, you know, your zone and how soon it started growing, that kind of thing. But there are different people that take them at different times. Once again, it's good to be clean about what you're doing. Sometimes you might want to wash your cuttings, especially hardwood cuttings. Your medium should be inert. It shouldn't contain a lot of compost and potting soil with nutrients in it. You don't want to introduce a lot of bacteria and fungi to your rooting medium. So there's different things that I would be focused on before looking at rooting hormone if you're struggling with rooting your cuttings. So, all that being said, to answer your question, help. What rooting hormone do you use and what's the most effective? I think that was roughly the right question. Any of them. It doesn't matter. All right. I hope that helped answer your guys' question. I hope that helps you a little bit in the planes, trains, and automobiles. Here we go again. I hope that helps get you on the right track to being more successful with your cutting. So, anyway, if you guys like this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to follow along. Have a fantastic week, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.